Hi, I'm Brad.
And I'm Jason.
We work for the Gunnison County Weed Management program. Today, we're going to talk about how to properly spray herbicides and how to calibrate. Invasive and noxious weeds can be very problematic to our private and public lands. And one tool that we can use to manage these weeds are herbicides.
Chemical methods are great tools, but like any tool, you need to know how to use it properly and safely for it to be most effective.
So one of the most important things when using an herbicide is knowing how to properly calibrate your equipment. So what I'm going to go over is just a few steps on how to calibrate. It's a fairly simple process, but it's one of the most important things you can do to make sure you're efficiently treating the plant species that you're targeting. The way you calibrate is you can get any simple hand sprayer or backpack sprayer from any of your local hardware stores, and then you calibrate them all exactly the same way. So we'll have our sprayer here. You're going to need a bucket, you're going to need a measuring cup, you're going to need to use a tape measure, and it's always important just to wear gloves because you don't know what chemical was in that sprayer in the past. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the tape measure and make an 18.5 by 18.5 square. And what that is it's 1/128th of an acre. There's 128 ounces in a gallon. So that allows you to know how many gallons per acre that you're going to spray. It's really important to try to make your square as accurate as you can. Getting exactly 18.5 by 18.5 foot square allows you to get precise amount of herbicide that you need to get exactly the species that you're targeting. Now that we've got our gloves on and our sprayer, we're going to go ahead and spray the square. And it's important to try to keep equal pressure as you're going through the square. And you want to try to hit all sections of the square as you're going. And you'll also notice as I start spraying, I spray backwards as I'm going through it. It's just an important technique to use when you're actually spraying fields in the weed. You don't want to spray in front of you and then have to walk through the chemical. It's also important to know that what's in your backpack when you're spraying, that you know that it's clean water. And right before you go to start spraying your square, it's good to go ahead and give it a little spray to see if that's how you are going to be spraying your plants. So we're going to go ahead and start spraying. So I'm going to have my coworker start his clock on 3. 1, 2, 3. Now that we've covered the square once, to be precise and get the most accurate number that we can, we typically will spray the square 3 times and take an average of the time it took to spray that square. Now that we've sprayed our square 3 times and we have an average time of 1 minute and 30 seconds, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the timer again, and we're going to spray into a bucket for 1 minute and 30 seconds, and then we're going to measure the output that comes out in 1 minute and 30 seconds. So we've made our 18.5 by 18.5 foot square. We've sprayed it 3 times and measured how long it took us to spray that square. And then we sprayed into the bucket that exact time to figure out how much output came out of our backpack while spraying that square. We took our measuring cup and measured how many ounces came out of that output. And we looked and it said 52 ounces had came out of the output of the backpack sprayer that we were using. So what that means is that this backpack is calibrated for 52 gallons per acre of product to spray on the plant species that you are targeting.
Okay, now that we've calibrated our spraying device, it's time to apply that number to mixing our herbicides. In this case, we're going to be using OpenSite, but this calculation will work for all herbicides. So in this example, we're going to be using the herbicide OpenSite, which is labeled to be used at 3.3 ounces per acre. So we're going to divide that by the 52 gallons per acre that the backpack sprayer was calibrated for. So this number here, 0.06, will be now multiplied by 4, which is the capacity of the backpack sprayer, to give us 0.25 ounces of herbicide to mix in that tank. When mixing herbicides, it's important to always have the proper PPE. This includes gloves, long sleeves, and eye protection. Always be sure to rinse out the remaining herbicide. Okay, now that we've entered our herbicide into our water, time to mix it up, shake it up. Make sure when you put your lid on that your lid either has a gasket or your basket does. Seal it tight. For backpack sprayers, I like to give it a shake. You can use the wand also, which works fine. On bigger machines with bigger tanks and pumps, the wand is definitely the way to go.
Once we've identified the plant species that we're trying to target and we have the proper calibration for the equipment that we're going to use, it's time to pick out herbicide that we want to use that targets specifically that species that we've identified as being a problem on our landscape. So when picking out an herbicide, you can typically go to any of your local hardware stores and find things that are just there on the shelves that are specific either to grasses or to the broadleaf species that we have in our valley. The most important thing when picking out an herbicide and using an herbicide is reading the label. The label is a legal document. The label is law, is what we say in the noxious weed world. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to be using a label from the product called Herbicide. Herbicide is a product used for broadleaf plants, and I'm not recommending Herbicide. I'm just using this label today for the purposes of this video. So, after we have picked our product and we want to figure out how to use it, and this label is going to tell you everything that you need to know to use that herbicide and do the most environmental good that you can with that product. First thing we want to do when looking at a label is making sure that that species is on that label that we're looking to target. Once we identified if that label or that product is capable for managing that species, we want to look to see where that product is capable of being used. A lot of products are only used in road right-of-ways, or only used for range, or only used in railroad settings. So we got to make sure that we're picking a product that can be used if you're looking at turf and ornamental, or if you're looking for pasture use. So once we identified that, we want to go through and read through the entire label. And I want to say that one more time, that you want to read through the entire label. For today's purposes, I'm just going to go through a couple highlighted areas that you should pay particularly attention to. It's also important to know when you're traveling with a product that you have to have the label with you. The label is typically on the bottle that you can see there. So almost all products have that label, but you can also find the label online just by searching the product. When reading a label, what you're going to do is make sure to look down and look for the important use, precaution, and restrictions to prevent injury to desirable plants. This will let you know where the product is able to be used and how to use it effectively. You'll notice looking through the label, you'll notice what ingredients are in that label, and what that does, it tells you what chemicals are in there and what other ingredients, sometimes called as inert ingredients. You'll also notice the EPA number on there. If you want to do any other further research, you can use that EPA number to look. When looking at a label, each herbicide label is a bit different, so that's another reason why it's really important to go through the entire label. You'll notice on this product there's a warning label. Each herbicide has a different title, and that tells you the toxicity of the herbicide. And looking at this label here, we'll notice right away it talks about user safety recommendations. Looking through the user safety recommendations and first aid and directions for use, it's exactly the most important things you need to know while using that herbicide that you select. You'll notice here it's talking about personal protection equipment, and that's saying that you need to be using gloves, long sleeves typically, long pants, socks, and shoes. It tells you a little bit about environmental hazards. So this will let you know if the product can be used near water's edge or what sort of buffer you need to use. And it also has always agricultural use requirements. You'll notice on this label there's a restricted use for hay. It says do not mow hay made from grass treated with open site within preceding 18 months of farm unleased allowed by supplemented labeling. And those are things that you need to determine and look through the label to make sure that you're using the proper herbicide for the species that you're targeting. You'll notice here it goes through first aid. Very important to read through the first aid. It talks about if you were to get it in your eyes, if it was swallowed, and they always have the emergency medical treatment information hotline that you can call if anything if there was an accident and you need to know the proper response. You'll notice here it talks about directions for use and how to apply this product. In certain products, you'll notice that open site's not permitted for the use in New York, Vermont, Maine. It's always good to make sure the product you have is labeled for the state that you're in and the area that you're in. Another thing that you'll find on the label that's very important is storage and disposal. Make sure to read through that properly and so you know how to properly store the herbicide that you select. So on the label, you'll find application methods, and it will describe to you how to either broadcast spray, spot spray, aerial spray. It'll explain to you exactly how you need to go about mixing, and it'll tell you the mixing instructions for how much of the herbicide that you need to put into the volume of water. The label will have all of the species that this herbicide is directed for use on. You find the species that you're targeting. For this example, we're going to use oxeye daisy. You'll see it on the label here, and it says open site rate ounces product per acre. It says 2.5 to 3.3 is the labeled rate to use this product on the specific species of oxeye daisy. So, as we've already been calibrated, we know how much chemical to put into the tank to target oxeye daisy. We'll be using a range between 2.5 to 3.3 ounces per acre. Going through the label, you'll also notice that for some products, you also have to mix in a surfactant.
Do it again.
And what a surfactant is, they call them stickers and spreaders, and it helps that herbicide stick to the plant and helps the herbicide go through the plant to effectively kill it. Well, we really want to thank you for watching this video and hope that it was informative to help you learn how to calibrate your equipment, and that learning that the label is law and reading through the label is a very important aspect to weed management on your properties. And I want to sincerely thank you for your concern on noxious weeds and helping protect our native landscapes and helping to protect this beautiful valley that we all cherish here in Gunnison County.